Welcome back everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at the RTX 3060 and the RX 6600 to help you decide which GPU is the right one for you. We're going to take a look at pricing, performance, and features, and we got affiliate links down below. Let's go! Taking a look at these GPUs, both the RX 6600 and the RTX 3060 support DirectX 12 as well as 4K resolution, although I wouldn't game on either of them on 4K. They also support ray tracing, but once again, I would not use ray tracing on either of these cards. Spoiler alert, as you'll see in the benchmarks later, neither of them are really good for ray tracing. Where these GPUs differ are in their software. The RTX 3060 supports the NVENC encoder, which is great for video editing and streaming. It also has DLSS, or Nvidia's version of upsampling technology, and also has Nvidia Broadcast, which is good for noise cancellation, video effects, and a whole host of other items. Not to be outdone, the RX 6600 has FSR, or AMD's version of upsampling technology. It also has a newly released noise suppression filter, as well as its own built-in encoder. Now, I don't think FSR or DLSS should be a selling point for either of these GPUs. As you'll see later on in the benchmarks, both of these GPUs are very capable at 1080p and 1440p gaming, so upsampling can give you better FPS, but they're already doing well enough that really at this point, it wouldn't do anything for you. Not to mention DLSS and FSR are not really widely supported at this point. More and more games are adopting the technologies at this point, but it's just not a very big selling point. So if you're interested in upsampling with either of these technologies, I would suggest just looking at the games that you play and checking the compatibility list to see if they're supported, and I'll leave a link to each of the compatibility lists in the description down below. Now, I personally use OBS and DaVinci Resolve for my content creation needs, and NVENC and the noise suppression technologies are just head over heels better than what AMD has at this time, but that could be different for your software that you use. The RX 6600 absolutely can stream and create content, so I wouldn't say that you shouldn't buy it for that. However, Nvidia's offering is just better. Now, as for the rest of the software suite, we're going to give the nod at this point to the RTX 3060. The NVENC encoder as well as the suite of software that Nvidia provides around it are just better than AMD's current offerings, and we do expect AMD to get better later on, but currently using OBS and DaVinci Resolve, things of that nature, it's just better with Nvidia hardware. Now, before we get into the benchmarking, let's take a quick look at the specs for each of these GPUs. Starting off with the RX 6600, this card has 3 DisplayPort 1.4 ports as well as 1 HDMI 2.1 port. It also has a base clock of 1626 MHz along with 8 gigs of VRAM. Now, this GPU is PCIe 4.0 but only by 8, so that does limit its memory bus to 128 bits, and its recommended power supply is 450 watts. Taking a look at the RTX 3060, this card also has 3 DisplayPort 1.4 ports and 1 HDMI 2.1 port. It also has 12 gigs of VRAM and a slower base clock of 1320 MHz. Now, since this card is actually PCIe 4.0 by 16, it supports a memory bus of 192 bits, and its recommended power supply is 550 watts. So on paper, the RX 6600 is more power efficient and has a higher base clock, while the RTX 3060 has more available VRAM and a more available memory bandwidth, so we'll have to see how that plays out in the benchmarks. Now, for the testing, important to note that I did not turn on smart access memory or resizable bar. We are using the same testing rig, just swapped out the GPUs and drivers for each run. We are running at high settings or the equivalent of high settings for each game and or benchmark. And for all the testing information as far as the rig and all the setups, versions and all that good stuff, check out the description down below.
Starting out with a few synthetic benchmarks, we see the RTX 3060 beat the RX 6600 in superposition at 1080p high settings as well as 1440p high settings. This also stayed true for Port Royal, a test of ray tracing ability, which highlights my aforementioned warning of not buying either of these GPUs for ray tracing performance. This is confirmed with Fortnite at 1080p high settings with ray tracing enabled, where neither card could hit 60 FPS. While I can't see anyone trying to play Fortnite with ray tracing on, it was a real world example of what we could see outside of synthetic benchmarks that really highlights how bad both of these GPUs are with ray tracing enabled. Moving into esports titles, we see the RTX 3060 take the lead with Rainbow Six Siege built-in benchmark at 1080p, however at 1440p the GPUs essentially perform the same. Fortnite sees the RX 6600 perform slightly better at both 1080p and 1440p, however the performance is so close you probably wouldn't notice a difference in game. Adding in Apex Legends, we see the RX 6600 win at 1080p, but was 1 FPS lower at 1440p, which is essentially a wash in my book. As for AAA games, we have Borderlands 3 and Far Cry 5 using the built-in benchmarks. The RTX 3060 was faster than the RX 6600 in Borderlands 3 at both 1080p and 1440p, while in Far Cry 5, the RTX 3060 and RX 6600 performed essentially the same. So for gaming performance, both GPUs ran very well, with the performance difference coming down to which game you play. So for gaming performance, we're going to call it a wash. I just don't think there would be a noticeable gaming performance difference with these GPUs, no matter which one you chose.
Now with that out of the way, let's take a look at pricing. The RTX 3060 is currently selling new for an average of $438 at the time of this recording. Now prices have probably changed by this point, but they probably changed again now, and changed again now, and just now again. But as you guys know, check the pricing again, it fluctuates all the time. Now the RX 6600 is going for an average price of about $309. Now if we take a look at eBay sold listings to get kind of an average of used pricing, the RTX 3060 is going for about $367, while the RX 6600 is going for about $237. So the RX 6600 is a lot cheaper. You can basically buy a new RX 6600 for what you can get a used RTX 3060 for. So the RX 6600 is going to get the point on pricing. So which GPU wins? Well, like everything in life, it depends. If you're looking solely for gaming, I would suggest the RX 6600. It performs on par with the RTX 3060 and is a lot cheaper. However, if you're going to be doing content creation, I would strongly suggest looking into the RTX 3060 because the software built around it plus the built-in NVENC encoder are just better in a lot of applications than AMD's current offerings are. Now just know that you are going to pay a premium for these cards, and I guess it's because the software and or, Jensen needs a new leather coat. But feel free to carry on the conversation in the comments down below. Make sure to do all the YouTube things like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.